I stood alone in my cap and gown, watching hundreds of families celebrate around me while my phone showed 17 unanswered calls. They knew. My parents, my sister Emma, even my grandmother knew this was today. But they chose my sister's amateur art show across town instead. That was the moment I understood I had never mattered to them. Not really. Standing there in that empty parking lot, diploma in hand, I made a decision that would change everything. I would disappear from their lives completely. The truth is, that graduation day was not a surprise. It was just the final proof of something I had spent 25 years trying to deny. I was the invisible child in the Taylor family, and I always had been. Growing up, my sister Emma was the star. She was 3 years younger than me, and from the moment she could hold a crayon, my parents decided she was gifted. Every scribble was a masterpiece. Every tantrum was artistic temperament. Every mediocre school project was evidence of her creative genius. And me? I was reliable, responsible, the one who did not need attention. I remember my 10th birthday. I had been excited for weeks because my parents promised we would go to the science museum, just the 4 of us. I loved science. I spent hours reading about space and dinosaurs and how engines worked. That morning, I woke up early, got dressed, and waited by the door with my jacket on. Then, Emma came downstairs crying because she had a school recital that afternoon. It was for her 2nd grade music class, nothing important, just kids banging on xylophones for 20 minutes. But she cried, and my mother held her, and my father made the decision. We would go to the recital instead. My birthday could wait, except it never happened. We never rescheduled. My mother baked a small cake that night, stuck 10 candles in it, sang a distracted version of Happy Birthday, and that was it. Emma got a standing ovation for hitting a triangle on beat. I got a grocery store cake and a pat on the head. That was the pattern for my entire childhood. When I made the honor roll in middle school, my report card got stuck to the fridge with a magnet. No comment. When Emma brought home a clay pot she made in art class, my parents bought a special shelf to display it and invited the neighbors over to see it. When I got accepted into the engineering program at State University with a partial scholarship, my father said, "That's good, son," and went back to reading the newspaper. When Emma's mediocre watercolor of a sunset got displayed in the hallway at her high school, my parents had it professionally framed and threw a dinner party to celebrate. My parents were Gerald and Patricia Taylor. My father worked as a corporate executive at a mid-level firm, the kind of job that paid well enough but left him tired and emotionally unavailable. He came home, ate dinner in silence, watched television, and went to bed. He never asked about my day. He never came to my robotics club competitions. He never seemed to notice I existed unless he needed something. My mother was different, but not in a better way. Patricia had been an artist in college, painting and sculpting, dreaming of gallery shows that never happened. She gave it up when she had me. Or at least, that is what I heard her tell people at parties. She gave up her dreams for her family. Then Emma was born, and suddenly my mother had a second chance. She could live her artistic dreams through her daughter. Emma became her project, her masterpiece, her reason for everything. My grandmother Judith lived 20 minutes away and visited every Sunday. She adored Emma, called her gifted, bought her expensive art supplies, paid for private lessons. She looked at me and said things like, "Miller is so reliable," or "Miller will be fine. He always is." It was not affection. It was dismissal. I worked 2 jobs all through college to pay my tuition. My parents had money. They were not wealthy, but they were comfortable. They could have helped me, but they did not offer, and I did not ask. I knew where the money went. It went to Emma's art supplies, her workshops in the city, her summer programs at creative retreats. She was building her career, they said. She needed support. I was studying engineering, something practical, something that would lead to a job. I would be fine on my own. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in mechanical engineering, specializing in robotics and artificial intelligence integration. It took me 4 years of late nights, brutal exams, and balancing 2 part-time jobs. I was exhausted, but I was proud. This was my achievement, something no one could take from me. I called my parents 2 weeks before graduation. I told them the date, the time, the location. I sent them calendar invites. I texted reminders. My mother responded with, "We will be there, sweetie." And my father said, "Sounds good." I even called Emma and told her, thinking maybe, just maybe, she would want to come support her brother. The morning of graduation, I woke up nervous and excited. I put on my cap and gown, checked myself in the mirror, and felt something I had not felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe today would be different. Maybe today they would see me. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Emma's art show got moved to today. It's really important for her career. You understand, right? I stared at that message for a full minute. Then I typed back, "This is my college graduation." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, her response came through. "You're so responsible, Miller. You'll be fine without us there. We love you." I sat on the edge of my bed, holding my phone, feeling something crack inside my chest. It was not surprise. It was confirmation. I drove to campus alone. I walked into the auditorium alone. I sat in my assigned seat in the rows of graduates, surrounded by people whose families had traveled from across the country to be there. I watched my roommate's parents crying with pride when his name was called. I saw my lab partner's entire extended family cheering and waving signs. When they called my name, Miller Taylor, Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, summa cum laude, I walked across that stage to polite applause from strangers. I shook hands with the dean, accepted my diploma, smiled for a photographer I would never see again, and walked off the other side. After the ceremony, everyone flooded out to find their families. There were flowers and balloons and tears and hugs and pictures. I walked to the parking lot, still wearing my cap and gown, and sat in my beat-up Honda Civic. I sat there for an hour, just staring at my diploma. I should not have, but I did. My mother had posted a photo from Emma's art show. It was at a coffee shop downtown, a tiny place with exposed brick walls and mismatched chairs. Emma's watercolors were hanging on the walls, amateur paintings of flowers and landscapes, the kind of thing you see at every small-town art fair. My parents were standing next to her, beaming. The caption read, "So proud of our talented daughter. What an incredible day for our family." I read that caption 5 times. An incredible day for our family. I was part of that family, but I was not part of that day. I sat in that parking lot until the sun started to set. Other graduates had long since left. The maintenance crew was cleaning up chairs and taking down banners. I finally started my car and drove back to my apartment. That night, I got a voicemail from my father. I almost deleted it without listening, but something made me press play. "Miller, I need you to pick up your grandmother from the airport tomorrow afternoon. Her flight gets in at 3. We're all exhausted from Emma's show. It was such an emotional day for the family. Your mother is drained, and Emma needs us here to help her celebrate. So just grab Judith and drive her home, okay? Call me back." I played that message 3 times. He did not mention my graduation. He did not apologize. He did not even seem to remember. And he wanted me to do him a favor. That was the moment everything became clear. They did not forget my graduation by accident. They chose not to come. They chose Emma's coffee shop art show over my college graduation, and they did not feel bad about it. They expected me to understand. They expected me to be fine with it. Because that was who Miller Taylor was. The responsible one. The one who did not need anything. The one who could be forgotten. I deleted the voicemail. I turned off my phone. And I started planning. I did not call my father back. I did not pick up my grandmother from the airport. For the first time in my life, I just did not do what they asked. Instead, I spent the next 3 days packing everything I owned. It was not much. Clothes, books, my laptop, some kitchen supplies, my engineering textbooks, and my diploma. Everything fit in my Honda Civic with room to spare. I had a job offer waiting for me in Seattle, a position as a junior engineer at a robotics company called Integrated Motion Systems. They designed prosthetic limbs with advanced AI integration, helping amputees regain natural movement. The offer had been sitting in my email for 2 weeks. I had been hesitating because it meant moving 800 miles away from everything I knew. Now, that distance felt like exactly what I needed. I accepted the job. I signed the lease on a small studio apartment sight unseen. I loaded my car, took one last look at the apartment I had lived in for 4 years, and started driving west. I did not tell anyone I was leaving. My phone started ringing somewhere around hour 3. I had turned it back on to use the GPS, and immediately the calls started coming in. My mother, my father, Emma, Judith. Over and over. I let them all go to voicemail. I was not ready to talk. I was not ready to hear their excuses or their guilt or their anger. I just needed to drive. By the time I reached Seattle 2 days later, I had 63 missed calls and 47 text messages. I pulled into the parking lot of my new apartment building, turned off the car, and sat there for a long moment. Then I unblocked all their numbers and sent one group message. I'm fine. I need space. Don't contact me for a while. The responses came immediately. My mother, Miller, what is going on? Where are you? We've been worried sick. You just disappeared. My father, this is unacceptable. Call me immediately. Emma, are you seriously doing this right now? You're making everything about you. I had the biggest day of my career and you're throwing a tantrum. Judith, your mother is beside herself. What has gotten into you? I read every message. Then I read them again. Not one of them mentioned the graduation. Not one of them apologized. They were worried, sure, but they were also annoyed. I had inconvenienced them by disappearing. I had made them look bad by not picking up Judith. I had stolen attention from Emma's big day by having some kind of breakdown. I typed out a response, deleted it, typed it again. Finally, I just turned off my phone and went inside. My new apartment was small but clean. One room with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a window that looked out over a parking lot. It was not much, but it was mine. No memories, no history, no ghosts. I started my job the following Monday. Integrated Motion Systems was everything I had hoped for. The team was small, passionate, dedicated to making a real difference in people's lives. My supervisor, a brilliant engineer named Dr. Susan Bradford, welcomed me warmly and immediately put me to work on a project designing more responsive knee joint mechanisms. I threw myself into the work. It felt good to be valued for what I could do, to be in a place where my contributions mattered. During my second week, I met Harper. She was a software engineer on the AI integration team, a woman in her early 30s with short dark hair and a direct way of speaking that I appreciated. We ended up in the break room at the same time, both nursing cheap coffee and looking tired. You're the new guy, right? She asked. Miller. Yeah, I said. Still learning where everything is. You'll get there. This place is good. People actually care about the work. She studied me for a moment. You look exhausted, though. Like, not just tired. Exhausted. I was not used to people noticing. Just a lot of changes lately. Moved here from across the country, starting over. Running from something, or running to something, she asked. The question caught me off guard. Both, I guess, she nodded. I get that. I did the same thing 5 years ago. Sometimes you have to burn the old life down to build a new one. We started having coffee together regularly. Harper was easy to talk to, and she did not push. But eventually, during one of our longer conversations, I told her everything. The graduation, the art show, the voicemail from my father, the decision to leave. I expected her to tell me I was overreacting, that family was important, that I should give them another chance. Instead, she said, "Good for you." I blinked. "What? Good for you," she repeated. "You recognized a toxic situation and you got out. That takes guts. Most people just keep accepting the scraps and convince themselves it's enough. They're my family," I said, though even as I said it, the words felt hollow. "Family is supposed to make you feel valued," Harper said. "If they don't, then what's the point? I cut off my parents 3 years ago. Best decision I ever made. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying you won't have complicated feelings about it, but you don't owe them your suffering just because you share DNA. Her words stayed with me. I started seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Ellen Price who specialized in family trauma. In our sessions, I began unpacking years of being overlooked, dismissed, treated as an afterthought. Dr. Price helped me see patterns I had normalized. She helped me understand that what I experienced was not just typical sibling rivalry or parental imperfection. It was neglect. It was emotional abuse. And it was not my fault. 3 months into my silence, I felt stronger. I was building a life in Seattle. I had friends. I had meaningful work. I was sleeping better. I was even starting to feel happy. Then I got a letter. It arrived at my apartment, forwarded from my old college address. The return address was from a law office in Denver, Colorado. Walsh and Associates. I opened it, confused. Dear Mr. Taylor, I am writing to inform you of the passing of Raymond Taylor, your great-uncle. Mr. Taylor passed away peacefully on July 14th. As the executor of his estate, I am reaching out because you have been named as the sole beneficiary of his will. Mr. Taylor's estate includes a property in Boulder, Colorado, as well as a substantial investment portfolio. I would appreciate the opportunity to discuss the details with you at your earliest convenience. Please contact my office to arrange a meeting. My condolences for your loss. Sincerely, Bernard Walsh, attorney at law. I read the letter 3 times. Raymond Taylor. My grandmother, Judith's older brother. I had met him maybe twice in my entire life, both times at family gatherings when I was young. He was a quiet man, serious, who left early and did not come back. I remembered my mother saying he was difficult, that he had cut off the family over some old argument. I had not known he died. No one had told me, and apparently, he had left me everything. I called the number on the letter. A secretary connected me to Bernard Walsh, who had a warm, professional voice that reminded me of an old-time radio announcer. Mr. Taylor, thank you for calling. I'm very sorry for your loss, though I understand you and Raymond were not particularly close. No, I admitted. I barely knew him. He knew you, though, Bernard said. He followed your life from a distance. He was very proud of you, particularly your academic achievements. He asked me to express that in his final instructions. My throat tightened. He was proud of me. Very much so. He left you a letter, actually. I can mail it, or if you prefer, we can meet in person to discuss the estate details and I can give it to you then. I flew to Denver the following week. Bernard Walsh's office was in a historic building downtown, all dark wood and leather chairs. He was a man in his 60s with silver hair and kind eyes. He shook my hand firmly and offered me coffee. Your great-uncle was a remarkable man, Bernard said as we sat down. Self-made, very principled, very private. He made his fortune in commercial real estate and lived modestly. No children, never married. He was estranged from most of your family for nearly 30 years. Why? I asked. Bernard hesitated. That's not entirely my story to tell, but I can say it involved similar issues to what you've experienced. Raymond felt unseen and undervalued by his family. When he tried to set boundaries, they reacted poorly. So, he left. Changed his name, actually. Became Raymond Taylor instead of Raymond Mueller, his birth name. Started over. The parallel was not lost on me. Bernard handed me an envelope. This is for you. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a handwritten letter on thick paper. Miller, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you're probably confused. We barely knew each other, and for that, I'm sorry. I stayed away from the family for my own sanity, but that meant staying away from you too. I want you to know I've been watching from a distance. I knew about your scholarship. I knew about your engineering degree. I knew about your graduation, and I knew your family didn't show up. I have a friend who teaches at your university. She told me you sat alone in that parking lot for an hour. I see myself in you, Miller. I see someone who gives and gives to people who only take. I see someone who has been made to feel small by people who should have made him feel invincible. This money is your freedom. Use it to build the life they said you'd never have without them. Use it to become the person you're meant to be. And Miller, if I may suggest something, become someone new. I did, and I never regretted it. Raymond Mueller died at 23. Raymond Taylor lived free for 40 years. You owe them nothing. You owe yourself everything. Raymond, I read the letter twice, tears blurring my vision. This man, this relative I barely knew, had seen me. He had understood. And he had given me a gift I did not know I needed. The estate is valued at approximately $1.2 million, Bernard said quietly. The property in Boulder is worth about $300,000. The rest is in various investments. It's all yours, free and clear. I could barely breathe. I don't know what to say. Raymond hoped you would use it to build a new life. That was his only wish. I left Bernard's office with paperwork, account numbers, and a property deed. I flew back to Seattle in a daze. That night, sitting in my small apartment, I made a decision that would have seemed insane 6 months ago. I was going to change my name, not to hide, not out of shame, but to mark a new beginning. Miller Taylor was the person my family tried to make me, someone responsible and invisible and grateful for scraps. I did not want to be that person anymore. I wanted to be someone new. The process of legally changing your name is surprisingly straightforward. You fill out forms, pay fees, publish a notice in a local newspaper, and wait for a judge to approve it. The hard part is not the paperwork. The hard part is choosing who you want to become. I spent 2 weeks thinking about names. I did not want something random or frivolous. I wanted something that felt right, something that represented who I wanted to be. I thought about authors I loved, characters who had meant something to me, words that carried weight. I landed on Calloway Reed. Calloway came from a book I had read in high school, a character who was quiet but strong, someone who did not need to be loud to be powerful. Reed meant red-haired in Scottish, and while my hair was more light brown than red, I liked the meaning. It felt authentic. It felt like mine. I filed the paperwork. I published the notice. 6 weeks later, I stood in front of a judge in a King County courtroom. "Mr. Taylor," the judge said, looking over my petition, "you're requesting to change your name to Calloway Reed. Can you tell me why?" I had prepared for this. "I'm starting a new life, Your Honor. The name I was given is connected to a past that no longer serves me. I want a name that represents who I am now and who am becoming." The judge studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Granted. Good luck, Mr. Reed." And just like that, Miller Taylor was gone. I updated everything. My driver's license, my social security card, my bank accounts, my work ID. At the office, I asked everyone to start calling me Calloway. Most people adapted quickly. Harper grinned and said it suited me. Dr. Bradford said it was a strong name, professional and memorable. With part of the inheritance, I bought a condo. Not just any condo, but a beautiful 2-bedroom unit with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of Elliott Bay. I bought real furniture, not the second-hand stuff I had lived with for years. I bought art for the walls. I made it a home. I invested the rest of the money wisely, working with a financial advisor to create a diversified portfolio. I was not rich, but I was secure. For the first time in my life, I did not have to worry about money. I could focus on my work, on my life, on becoming the person I wanted to be. At Integrated Motion Systems, I thrived. I was promoted within 6 months to a senior engineer position, leading a small team working on neural interface technology for prosthetics. The goal was to create limbs that responded to thought, that felt like natural extensions of the body. It was cutting-edge work, meaningful work, and I was good at it. I made real friends. Harper and I became close, the kind of friendship where you can sit in comfortable silence or talk for hours about nothing. I met others through work, through a hiking group I joined, through volunteering at a community center. These people knew me as Calloway Reed. They knew nothing about Miller Taylor, and I liked it that way. My therapist, Dr. Price, said I was doing better than she expected. "You're building a healthy identity," she told me. You're defining yourself on your own terms. That's powerful. I felt powerful. For the first time in 26 years, I felt like I mattered. Then, 6 months after my name change was finalized, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost did not answer. I had gotten good at ignoring unknown calls, but something made me pick up. Miller. A familiar voice said, "Miller, it's Jason. From college. Your roommate." Jason. We had been close during school, but I had not spoken to him since graduation. "Hey Jason, it's actually Calloway now. I changed my name." "Oh. Okay, Calloway. Listen, I'm sorry to call out of the blue like this, but I thought you should know something. It's about your family." My stomach dropped. "What about them?" "They're telling people you stole money from your grandmother and disappeared. Your sister Emma has been posting on social media about it. She's saying you had a breakdown, that you drained a family account and cut everyone off out of guilt. People are believing her. Man, they're saying you're unstable, that you're a thief. I know you, and I know that's garbage, but I thought you should know what they're saying." I closed my eyes. "Thanks for telling me. Are you okay? Do you need anything?" "I'm okay," I said. "I'm better than okay, actually. But thank you, Jason. Really." After we hung up, I sat very still for a long time. Then I did something I had not done in 6 months. I created a fake social media account and looked up my family. What I found made my blood run cold. Emma had posted a video 2 weeks earlier. In it, she was crying, her face blotchy and red, talking about her missing brother who had stolen from the family and disappeared without a trace. "Miller was always troubled," she said, between sobs. "We tried to help him, but he refused. And then one day, he just took money that wasn't his and vanished. We're heartbroken. We don't know if he's safe. We don't know if he's alive. If anyone has seen him, please contact us." The comments were full of sympathy. People calling me terrible names, saying I should be ashamed, hoping I would get what I deserved. My mother had shared the video with her own caption. "Our family is going through an unimaginable crisis. Our son Miller had a breakdown and took money from his grandmother before disappearing. We're asking for privacy during this difficult time, but if anyone has information, please reach out. We just want to know he's safe." My father had posted on LinkedIn, of all places, about family betrayal and the pain of having a child turn criminal. It was vague enough to seem professional, but anyone who knew him would know who he meant. They had created an entire narrative. Miller Taylor, the troubled son who stole from his own grandmother and ran away. They were the victims. They were the concerned family. And I was the villain. I felt sick. But underneath the nausea was something else. Clarity. And anger. They had not been worried about me. They had been worried about themselves. They must have found out about the inheritance somehow, probably through Judith, and they were furious. This was not about concern. This was about money and control, and making sure they looked good. I called Bernard Walsh. He confirmed my suspicion. Judith had contacted him, demanding information about Raymond's will. When Bernard refused to give her details, citing attorney-client privilege, she had exploded. She called him names, threatened to sue, and eventually hung up on him. A few days later, she called back and apologized. But by then, Bernard knew what was happening. She expected the money to come to her. Bernard said, "Or to your parents." She was furious that Raymond left everything to you. She said you hadn't earned it, that you barely knew him, that the family deserved it more. "So they decided to punish me," I said. "It appears so." I thanked Bernard and hung up. Then I called a lawyer specializing in defamation. Her name was Rachel Morgan, a sharp woman in her 40s who came highly recommended. I met with her in her downtown Seattle office, a sleek space with modern furniture and diplomas covering one wall. I told her everything. The graduation, the disappearance, the inheritance, and now the social media campaign painting me as a thief and a criminal. Rachel listened, without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. "Do you have documentation?" she asked. "Texts, voicemails, anything that shows the pattern of neglect and the circumstances around your decision to leave." "All of it," I said. "I saved everything." "Good," What they're doing is textbook defamation. They're making false statements of fact that are damaging your reputation. The problem is, suing family members is complicated. It's going to get ugly. It's already ugly, I said. I want them to stop. Rachel nodded. Then let's stop them. Over the next 2 weeks, I compiled everything. Screenshots of my mother's text on graduation day. The voicemail from my father asking me to pick up Judith. Old emails showing I paid my own tuition. Bank statements proving I never had access to any family accounts. The letter from Raymond. The documentation of the inheritance. Character references from Jason, from Harper, from Dr. Bradford. Even a statement from my therapist, with my permission, outlining the emotional neglect I had experienced. Rachel drafted cease and desist letters to my parents, Emma and Judith. The letters were detailed, clinical, and devastating. They outlined every false statement, provided evidence refuting each claim, and made clear that continued defamation would result in legal action. The letters also mentioned my legal name change to Callaway Reed and stated that any further harassment would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We sent them via certified mail, requiring signatures. For 2 weeks, there was silence. No more social media posts. No more public statements. I allowed myself to hope that maybe it was over. Then Emma showed up at my work. I was in a meeting with Dr. Bradford and 2 other engineers, reviewing designs for a new wrist joint mechanism, when my phone buzzed with a text from the front desk receptionist. "There's a woman here demanding to see you. She says she's your sister. Security is with her." What should I do? My stomach dropped. I excused myself from the meeting and went downstairs. Emma was in the lobby, and she was making a scene. She was crying, yelling, gesturing wildly while 2 security guards tried to calm her down. The receptionist looked mortified. Other employees were staring. "I need to see my brother," Emma was shouting. "His name is Miller Taylor and he works here and he abandoned our family." I stepped forward. "I'm here." Emma spun around. Her face was red and blotchy, her eyes wild. She looked like she had not slept in days. "Miller, finally. Do you have any idea what you've done to us? Mom is sick with grief. Dad lost his job. You destroyed this family." The lobby had gone silent. Everyone was watching. "My name is Callaway Reed," I said quietly. "You need to leave. You can't just change your name and pretend we don't exist," she screamed. "You stole from Grandma. You ran away like a coward. And now you're sending lawyers after us? We're your family." One of the security guards stepped forward. "Mom, you need to leave the building." "No, he needs to hear this. He needs to know what he did." She turned back to me, tears streaming down her face. "Dad got fired because of the stress you caused. Mom had to sell her jewelry to pay bills. Grandma is in a home because we can't afford to take care of her. This is your fault." I felt eyes on me. Dr. Bradford had come downstairs. Harper was in the hallway. Half my coworkers were watching this spectacle. "You need to leave," I repeated. "Now, or he'll have you arrested for trespassing. You're heartless," Emma shrieked. "You're a selfish, heartless monster. I hope you're happy with your new life, because you destroyed ours." The security guards took her arms and led her toward the door. She fought them, still screaming, still crying. "This isn't over, Miller. This isn't over." The door closed behind her. The lobby was completely silent. I turned and walked back toward the elevators, my face burning. Dr. Bradford followed me. "My office," she said quietly. "Now." I sat in her office while she closed the door. I expected anger, disappointment, maybe even termination. Instead, she sat across from me and said, "Tell me what's happening." So I did. I told her everything, from the beginning. The graduation, the neglect, the inheritance, the name change, the defamation campaign. I showed her the cease and desist letters, the evidence, the social media posts. I told her about Emma showing up, about the accusations. Dr. Bradford listened carefully. When I finished, she nodded. "First, you're not in trouble. What just happened is not your fault. Second, We're going to document this incident and file it with building security. If she comes back, well, involve the police. Third, you have my complete support. What your family is doing is harassment, and it's unacceptable. I felt something loosen in my chest. Thank you. You're a valuable member of this team, Calloway. You do excellent work, and you're a good person. Don't let them make you doubt that. I left her office feeling shaken but also strangely empowered. I called Rachel Morgan immediately. She showed up at my workplace and caused a scene. I told her. Security had to remove her. Perfect, Rachel said, and I could hear the grim satisfaction in her voice. That's harassment. We're filing a restraining order, and we're moving forward with the defamation lawsuit. They've crossed too many lines. Over the next week, Rachel and I prepared the lawsuit. We filed against my parents and Emma for defamation, emotional distress, and harassment. The lawsuit detailed every false statement, every social media post, every public accusation. It included witness statements from people who had seen Emma's outburst at my workplace. It demanded public retractions, apologies, and damages. We also filed for a restraining order against Emma. The judge granted it immediately, citing the workplace incident. My family was served with legal papers. My parents, my sister. All of them, official documents outlining their lies and demanding accountability. I waited for the response. It came from my father, calling from a number I did not recognize. I recorded the call, as my lawyer had advised. "Miller," he said, and his voice was tight with anger. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "My name is Calloway Reed," I said calmly, "and I'm holding you accountable for defamation. We're your family. You can't sue your own family. You stopped being my family when you chose to forget my graduation. You stopped being my family when you lied about me publicly. You stopped being my family when Emma showed up at my workplace and harassed me. We were trying to find you. We were worried. You weren't worried when I graduated alone. You weren't worried when I disappeared for 3 months. You were worried when you found out about the inheritance. This was never about me. It was always about money. You're twisting everything," Gerald said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I'm seeing it clearly for the first time. You neglected me my entire life, and when I finally stopped accepting it, you tried to destroy my reputation. That's not love. That's control. You'll regret this," he said. "The only regret I have is not doing this sooner. Goodbye, Gerald." I hung up. The lawsuit moved forward. Rachel subpoenaed social media records, bank statements, everything. And then she found something neither of us expected. "Calloway," she said during one of our meetings, her voice careful. "We found irregularities in your grandmother's bank accounts." "What kind of irregularities?" "Checks made out to Emma, a lot of them. Over the past 2 years, Emma has written herself checks from Judith's account totaling over $40,000. The signatures look forged." I stared at her. Emma was stealing from Judith. "It appears so. Either your grandmother didn't notice, or she was too afraid to say anything. But the pattern is clear. Emma was embezzling money for her art career." The irony was almost funny. They had accused me of stealing from Judith, when all along, Emma was the actual thief. "Does this change the lawsuit?" I asked. "It makes it much stronger. It shows they were projecting. They accused you of exactly what Emma was doing. We can use this." I felt a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. My family had not just neglected me, they had become people who lied, stole, and destroyed reputations to protect themselves. Rachel included the evidence of Emma's theft in our case filings. She also reported it to the local authorities in my hometown. If they wanted to press charges, that was their choice, but at minimum, it would be on record. My family's lawyer, a clearly overworked public defender who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else, requested mediation instead of going to trial. Rachel looked at me. "It's your call." I thought about it. A trial would be public, messy, painful. Mediation would be faster, more controlled. And honestly, I did not want to drag this out. I just wanted it to end. "Mediation," I said. "But I have terms." "Hello. I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services." Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Rachel went first. She laid out everything methodically. The evidence of my graduation being ignored, the text messages, the voicemails, the social media posts making false accusations, Emma's workplace harassment, the restraining order, the evidence of Emma's embezzlement from Judith's accounts. She presented character statements from my friends, my employer, my therapist. She showed bank records proving I had never had access to any family accounts, that the inheritance from Raymond was legally mine, that every accusation against me was demonstrably false. It took 40 minutes. By the end, Stevens looked ill. My parents looked at the table. Emma was crying quietly, but they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of anger. "Your turn," Miss Brennan said to Stevens. He shuffled papers. "My clients acknowledge that emotions have been running high. There have been misunderstandings on both sides. They're willing to issue a private apology and agree to no further contact if Mr. Reed will drop the lawsuit." "No," I said. Everyone looked at me. "No," I repeated. "A private apology is not enough. They publicly accused me of being a thief and a criminal. They damaged my reputation. They harassed me. A private apology does nothing to fix that." "What do you want?" Stevens asked. Rachel answered for me. "Public written apologies on all social media platforms where defamatory statements were made. Admission that the accusations were false. A promise of zero contact moving forward. Payment of all legal fees. And Emma must enter financial counseling and create a repayment plan for the money she stole from Judith." "That's outrageous," Stevens said. "That's accountability." Rachel replied. Patricia finally spoke, her voice shaking. "Miller, please. We're still your family. Can't we just move past this?" "My name is Calloway Reed," I said. "Miller Taylor doesn't exist anymore. And no, we can't move past this. You don't get to forget my accomplishments, lie about me, harass me, and then ask me to just let it go because we share DNA. You're being cruel," Emma said. I looked at her directly for the first time. "I'm being honest. You've spent 2 years stealing from our grandmother while accusing me of the same thing. You showed up at my workplace and tried to humiliate me in front of my colleagues. You posted videos calling me a criminal. That's cruel, Emma. I'm just demanding that you tell the truth." Gerald cleared his throat. "If we agree to your terms, this ends?" "Completely. If you agree to my terms and follow through, yes. You post the apologies, you pay the fees, Emma enters counseling and starts repaying Judith, and you never contact me again. Then it ends." He looked at Stevens, who shrugged helplessly. "I think you should take the deal." Gerald nodded slowly. "Fine. We agree." "Wait," I said. "I want to say something first." Miss Brennan nodded. "Go ahead." I looked at each of them. My father, who had never asked about my day. My mother, who had loved her dreams more than her son. My sister, who had taken and never given anything back. My grandmother, who had chosen favorites and wondered why it hurt. "I gave you so many chances," I said. "I tried so hard to be good enough, to be worth your attention. I worked harder than anyone I knew. I put myself through college. I graduated with honors. And you couldn't be bothered to show up for 2 hours to watch me walk across a stage. That told me everything I needed to know. You had a choice that day. You chose Emma's coffee shop art show over my college graduation. You chose wrong, and when I finally chose myself, you tried to destroy me for it. That's not love. That's not family. That's just people who wanted me to stay small so you could feel big." Patricia started crying, but it was self-pity, not genuine remorse. "We made mistakes," she said. "We're not perfect. Mistakes are forgetting to call on my birthday. This was 26 years of making me feel worthless. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." Only Judith spoke with any real self-awareness. Her voice was quiet, barely audible. "I failed you. I see that now. I chose Emma because she reminded me of myself, and I told myself you didn't need the same attention because you were strong. But that was just an excuse. I was lazy and selfish. And I'm sorry." I looked at her. She was 91 years old, sitting in a wheelchair, probably with only a few years left. I could have said something kind. I could have absolved her, but I was done making them feel better about hurting me. "Thank you for saying that," I said, "but it doesn't change anything." Emma, who had been quiet, suddenly exploded. "You know what? We never loved you anyway. You were always the mistake. Mom got pregnant with you accidentally and Dad wanted her to." Emma. Patricia cut her off, horrified. But the damage was done. The room went silent. I processed the words. I had always suspected I was not planned, but hearing it confirmed, hearing that my father had wanted my mother to terminate the pregnancy, hearing it said out loud in a room full of people, was something else entirely. I waited for it to hurt. I waited for the familiar pain, the tightness in my chest, the feeling of being too much and not enough all at once. But it did not come. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. "Thank you," I said to Emma. She blinked. "What? Thank you. That's the most honest thing anyone in this family has ever said to me. Now I don't have to wonder anymore. Now I know for certain that leaving was the right choice." I stood up. "We're done here. You'll post the apologies by Monday. You'll have payment arrangements for the legal fees by the end of the month. Emma will provide proof of enrollment in financial counseling within 2 weeks. Rachel will send over the specific wording for the apologies. Once that's done, I never want to hear from any of you again." I walked to the door. "Miller," my father said. I stopped but did not turn around. "My name is Calloway Reed. Miller Taylor died the day you forgot his graduation. You're just finally noticing." I walked out. Rachel followed. We did not speak until we were in her car. "Are you okay?" she asked. I thought about it. "Yeah, I actually am. The apologies went up on Monday. They were brief, clinical, exactly what Rachel had drafted. My mother's post said, 'I made false statements about my son, Miller Taylor, now known as Calloway Reed. He did not steal from our family. I was wrong, and I apologize.' Similar posts appeared on my father's LinkedIn and Emma's various accounts. The comments were interesting. Some people were sympathetic to my family, but many others saw through it. People started sharing their own stories of being scapegoated by families, of being blamed for problems they did not create. The narrative shifted. Suddenly, I was not the villain anymore. I did not read all the comments. I did not need to. I just needed them to tell the truth, and they had. Emma enrolled in financial counseling, forwarded the documentation to Rachel. My parents set up a payment plan for the legal fees. Judith sent one more letter, handwritten, apologizing again. I read it once and filed it away. Then I blocked all their numbers, all their social media accounts, everything. I did not need updates. I did not need to know how they were doing. I just needed them gone from my life. And they were. 2 years passed. In that time, I became someone I never imagined I could be. Calloway Reed was not just a name, it was a whole person, fully realized, living a life that felt authentically mine. At Integrated Motion Systems, I was promoted to lead engineer, heading up the entire prosthetics AI division. We had breakthroughs that made national news. Our neural interface technology allowed amputees to control prosthetic limbs with the same precision and feeling as natural limbs. I worked with veterans who had lost legs in combat, with children born without full limbs, with accident survivors rebuilding their lives. Every day, I saw the direct impact of my work. People walked, ran, held their children, played instruments. They cried and thanked me, and I told them it was science. But really, it felt like purpose. Dr. Bradford became a mentor and a friend. She nominated me for engineering awards. I won several. My photo appeared in trade publications. I gave talks at conferences. I was respected, valued, celebrated for what I could do, not dismissed for what I was not. Harper remained my closest friend. We had coffee every Friday, hiked every other weekend, and she was the first person I called when anything important happened. She knew me better than anyone, and she never once made me feel like I was too much or not enough. She just let me be exactly who I was. I met Grace at a volunteer event at a community center. I had started volunteering with a program that provided mentorship to kids from difficult family situations, helping them with homework and college applications. Grace was a teacher there, smart and kind with this way of seeing the best in people without being naive about their struggles. We got coffee after one of the sessions, then dinner, then more dinners. 6 months later, she moved into my condo, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Grace knew everything about my past. I told her on our third date, wanting her to understand who I was and where I came from. She listened without judgment, held my hand across the table and said, "I'm glad you chose yourself, and am glad I get to know the person you became." With part of Raymond's inheritance, I bought the property in Boulder that he had left me. It was a cabin in the mountains, rustic but beautiful, surrounded by pine trees with a view of snow-capped peaks. I went there when I needed to think, to write in the journal my therapist had suggested, to just exist without the noise of the city. Grace loved it too. We spent long weekends there, hiking and reading and cooking meals in the tiny kitchen. I kept seeing Dr. Price, though less frequently now. She said I had done the work. I had processed the trauma, set healthy boundaries, built a life on my own terms. "You're not broken," she told me during one of our last sessions. "You never were. You were just in a situation that made you feel broken. You got yourself out, and that takes incredible strength." I felt that strength now. I felt whole. I checked my family's social media occasionally, from a distance, more out of curiosity than any emotional need. Emma worked retail at a department store, her art career never having materialized. Her posts were infrequent, mostly complaints about work and money. Gerald and Patricia had downsized to a small apartment. Their posts were mundane: photos of meals, generic inspirational quotes, occasional pictures of Emma. Judith was in an assisted living facility, according to a post from my mother thanking the staff for their care. I felt neither satisfaction nor pity looking at these updates. I felt nothing, and that was freedom. One afternoon in spring, I received a wedding invitation forwarded from my old address, the one I had not used in years but had never officially closed. It was from Jason, my college roommate. He was getting married in June, and he wanted me there. I RSVP'd yes. Grace and I flew out together. The wedding was beautiful, held at a vineyard in California. Jason looked happier than I had ever seen him. His bride, a woman named Claire, was warm and funny and clearly adored him. The ceremony was heartfelt, the reception joyful. I saw people I had not seen since college, people who had known me as Miller. During the cocktail hour, a group of old friends gathered around me, asking about my life. I told them about Seattle, about my work with prosthetics, about the awards and the breakthroughs. They were amazed. "Your family must be so proud," someone said. I smiled. I have a new family now, people who chose me and who I chose. There was a moment of awkward silence as they processed that, but then someone changed the subject, and the moment passed. Later, I danced with Grace. She rested her head on my shoulder, and we swayed to some old love song, surrounded by people celebrating commitment and love and choosing each other. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. I really am. That night, standing outside under the stars with Grace beside me, I thought about the question she had asked. Was I happy? For most of my life, I would not have known how to answer that. Happiness felt like something other people got to have, something I was not entitled to. But now, standing here, living a life I had built entirely on my own terms, I understood. Happiness was not something you earned through suffering or sacrifice. It was something you claimed by deciding you deserved it. 6 months after Jason's wedding, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was my mother's. Inside was a single letter, handwritten on plain paper. "Calloway, I don't expect you to respond to this. I don't even know if you'll read it, but I needed to write it, even if only for myself. I've spent the last 2 years thinking about what happened, about the choices I made as a mother, as a person, about the ways I failed you. I can make excuses. I can say I was overwhelmed, or that I didn't know better, or that I was living through Emma because I gave up my own dreams. But none of that matters. What matters is that you were my son, and I made you feel invisible. I made you feel like you didn't matter. And that's unforgivable. I won't ask for your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. I see what we all did. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I hope you found happiness. You deserved better than we gave you. You deserved better than me. Patricia, I read the letter twice. Then I put it in a box I kept in my closet. A box with other artifacts from my old life. Uncle Raymond's letter. The newspaper clipping of my name change approval. The program for my college graduation. Things I did not need to look at every day but wanted to remember. I did not write back. I did not call. But I felt something shift. Some small piece of weight I did not realize I was still carrying. It was not forgiveness, exactly. It was acknowledgement. She saw what she did, and she took responsibility. That was more than I expected, and while it did not change the past, it gave me closure. The final piece came a year later. I was at work when Dr. Bradford called me into her office. She had a strange expression, something between pride and excitement. Callaway, I have news. The team's neural interface project has been nominated for the National Medal of Technology and Innovation, and you've been specifically named as the lead engineer. If we win, you'll be going to Washington to receive it from the president. I stared at her. Are you serious? Dead serious. You did this, Callaway. This is your work, your vision. You deserve this. We did not win the medal, but we were finalists, which was enough. My photo appeared in Science Today magazine. I was interviewed for a podcast about innovation in medical technology. My name, Callaway Reed, was associated with groundbreaking work that changed lives. I thought about how different this was from Miller Taylor, the invisible son, the forgotten child. Callaway Reed was seen. He was valued. He mattered. And he had built it all himself. 5 years after I walked away from my family, I stood in my Boulder cabin with Grace, watching the sun set over the mountains. We had just gotten engaged. I proposed during a hike, nothing elaborate, just the two of us and the wild beauty of Colorado. She said yes, and we hiked back down holding hands, laughing about how we would tell people. Life was good, better than good. Life was everything I had never let myself dream it could be. I still volunteered with the mentorship program. One kid I worked with, a 16-year-old named Tyler, reminded me so much of my younger self. He was smart, hard-working, desperate to prove himself to a family that barely noticed him. I told him my story, not all of it, but enough. I told him that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who make you feel small. But they're my family, he said. Family is supposed to build you up, I told him. If they're tearing you down, they're not doing their job. You don't owe anyone your suffering, Tyler. Not even blood relatives. I saw something change in his face. Some permission granted. A few months later, he told me he had started setting boundaries with his parents. He told them he would not accept being compared to his older brother anymore. He told them he needed their support, not their criticism. And surprisingly, they listened. Not perfectly, but they tried. Sometimes people can change if you show them you're serious. Not my family, though. I had not heard from them in 3 years. No letters, no calls, no attempts at reconciliation. True to their word, they left me alone. I assumed they had moved on, built their own narrative about the son who left, found a way to make peace with it. I did not need their peace. I had my own. Grace and I got married in a small ceremony at the Boulder cabin. Harper was my best man, which raised some eyebrows, but she was the person who knew me best, so it made sense. Dr. Bradford came, along with a dozen close friends from Seattle. Jason flew out with Claire and their baby daughter. It was intimate, joyful, exactly what we wanted. During the reception, Harper gave a toast. I met Callaway 5 years ago, she said. He was starting over, building a new life from scratch. I've watched him become one of the best engineers I know, one of the best friends I've ever had, and now, a husband to someone who sees exactly how incredible he is. Calloway, you chose yourself when it mattered most, and because of that, you got to choose all of this. She gestured around at the gathering, at Grace, at the life I had built. Here's to choosing yourself, and here's to everyone who's brave enough to do the same. Everyone raised their glasses. Grace squeezed my hand, and I felt, for the first time in my entire life, completely at home. That night, after everyone had gone to bed and the cabin was quiet, Grace and I sat on the porch under the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Leaving them?" I thought about the question. I had been asked it before, by therapists and friends and occasionally by strangers who heard my story. The answer was always the same. "I regret that I needed to do it," I said. "I regret that they couldn't love me the way I deserved. I regret that I spent so many years trying to be good enough for people who would never see me. But I don't regret choosing myself. That decision saved my life." "I'm glad you did," she said, "because otherwise, I wouldn't have found you. You would have found someone." I said, "Not you," she said, "and I wanted you." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called out. The air smelled like pine and snow, clean and sharp. "What do you think Miller Taylor would say if he could see you now?" Grace asked. I smiled. "I think he'd say thank you." "For what?" "For letting him go. For becoming something better." 2 months after the wedding, I was invited to speak at a conference for young engineers. The topic was innovation in medical technology, but I was given creative freedom to shape the talk however I wanted. I decided to talk about more than just engineering. I decided to talk about value. I stood on that stage in front of 300 people and told my story. Not all of it, but the important parts. The invisible childhood, the forgotten graduation, the decision to walk away, the name change, the building of a new life, the work that gave me purpose. I spent 25 years trying to prove I was worth something to people who had already decided I wasn't. I said. And then I realized something. I didn't need to prove anything. I just needed to leave. Your worth isn't determined by people who refuse to see it. Your worth is inherent. You are valuable because you exist, because you contribute, because you choose to show up. And if the people around you can't see that, it's not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their limitations. The room was silent. I could see people nodding, some wiping their eyes. "I'm not saying everyone should cut off their family," I continued. "That's a deeply personal choice, and it's not always necessary. But I am saying this. If you're in a situation where you're constantly made to feel small, where your accomplishments are dismissed, where you're only valued for what you provide and never for who you are, you're allowed to leave. You're allowed to choose yourself, and you don't have to feel guilty about it." The applause was long and loud. Afterward, at least 20 people came up to me, sharing their own stories of difficult families, of choosing themselves, of building new lives. One young woman, maybe 23, told me she had been planning to skip her sister's wedding to attend her own graduate school commencement, but her parents were furious. They said, "I'm being selfish," she said. "But my graduation is important to me." "Then go to your graduation," I told her. "Your accomplishments matter. If they can't celebrate you, celebrate yourself, and find people who will celebrate with you." She hugged me, thanked me, walked away looking stronger. That was when I understood the real gift Uncle Raymond had given me. It was not the money, though that had certainly helped. It was permission. Permission to start over. Permission to become someone new. Permission to live a life defined by my choices, not by other people's limitations. I thought about Raymond often. I wished I had known him better, wished I had been able to thank him in person. But in a way, I was thanking him every day by living the life he made possible. The years continued. Grace and I talked about kids. We decided to wait, to travel first, to build our life together before adding to it. We went to Europe, to Asia, to South America. We hiked mountains and explored cities and ate food we could not pronounce. Every trip felt like an adventure, like we were collecting experiences instead of things. At work, I continued to innovate. My team developed technology that allowed paralyzed patients to control robotic exoskeletons with their thoughts. We helped people walk again, dance again, live full lives again. The work was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. And through it all, I never heard from my family. Not on my birthday, not on holidays, not ever. They had agreed to no contact, and they kept their word. I did not miss them. I missed the idea of them, sometimes. I missed what they could have been, what a family was supposed to be, but I did not miss the actual people they were. 10 years after I left, I received one final piece of closure. A lawyer contacted me to let me know that Judith had passed away. She was 96. The lawyer said she had left me something in her will. It was a letter. Calloway, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I won't pretend we had a good relationship at the end. We didn't. I failed you when you needed me, and ill carry that regret to my grave. But I want you to know that I followed your life from a distance these last few years. I read about your work. I saw your photo in magazines. I heard you were happy, that you got married, that you built something real. I'm proud of you. I should have said that when it mattered, when you were a child desperate for someone to notice. But I'll say it now, even if it's too late. You were right to leave. You were right to choose yourself. And I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to. Live well, Calloway. You earned it. Judith. I read the letter sitting in my home office, Grace at work, the house quiet around me. I cried, not out of grief but out of release. She saw me at the end. It did not fix everything. It did not make up for the years of being overlooked. But it was something. I put the letter with the others in that box in my closet. A collection of endings and beginnings. That night, I thought about Miller Taylor one more time, the boy who worked so hard for scraps of approval, the young man who sat alone in a parking lot on the most important day of his academic life, the person who felt invisible for so long that he started to believe he was. And then I thought about Calloway Reed, the man who decided he mattered, the engineer who changed lives, the husband, the friend, the mentor, the person who built a life on his own terms. Miller Taylor was the person they tried to make me. Calloway Reed is who I actually am. I disappeared from their lives, but I finally appeared in my own. And that decision did not just change everything. It saved everything. It saved me. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you had to choose between staying and suffering, or leaving and healing? What would you do if you were in my shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more stories about resilience and transformation, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you're allowed to choose yourself, and that sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see your worth. Take care of yourselves, and remember, you define your own value. Nobody else gets to do that for you.